celebrate the ministry and the life of St. Thomas the Apostle. St. Thomas the Apostle is by far my favorite. St. Thomas's struggles in the faith in the early days recall to myself my own cynical nature at times. St. Thomas is a message to us, as many of us who have grown up in the modern age of what we call the modern age of reason, and that we tend to analyze everything that we perceive. The faith, living, the things that we do, the people whom we meet, the situations that we find ourselves embroiled in, we tend to analyze them and to try to make heads or tails out of them so that we can compartmentalize them. The faith cannot be compartmentalized. God cannot be put in a box. And so as it is, we will find that once we get to the point where we say what God is, then that idea ceases to be God. So we have to constantly refer to him in a way what's called apophatic reasoning. In other words, we can say what God is not. That God is not evil. We know this for a fact. And that we can actually say these things and not put God in the box, so to speak. St. Thomas was the apostle who doubted. He's the source from where we get our euphemism, a doubting Thomas. And so many are out there in the world today who are doubting Thomases. However, St. John Chrysostom reminded us, when he spoke of St. Thomas the Apostle, he said that even though with his struggles early on in the faith, he more than made up for them in his zeal and his vigor and his evangelism later on in the faith. For he established many churches in Asia Minor, even as far away as India. In fact, St. Thomas the Apostle in India died the martyr's death, for he had converted the wife and the family household of an Indian king to Christianity. And the king sent his soldiers out to him, and they imprisoned him and tortured him. He finally died the martyr's death at the point of 5 spear tips were placed in him. Thomas spoke with the faith, as all the apostles did. Let's look at this a little bit. The faith is something which we hold in our hearts. However, the faith is not merely perceived with the heart, for we are surrounded by the reminders of the fullness that we experience as Orthodox Christians. You see, we experience the faith, the worship in the church with our tactile senses. We hear the gospel being read. It's through our ears that the gospel comes to us and that we can be enlightened by the message. We see surrounding us those who have gone before us in the faith, the saints, the martyrs, the apostles, the fathers of the faith, who have gone before us and even now stand as witness on that great cloud of witnesses that Paul spoke of. We perceive that which is in the temple, the ritual, the worship and honor that is due unto God. We experience it through the smells of our nose, the incense which is burned in honor of He who has given us so much. It is said that the prayers of the faithful are wafted to the throne room of heaven and the wafts of incense that arise, even as in the temple in the old days of the Jews. And so we're experiencing the faith in our senses, our tactile senses too. So it's not just with one thing that we can use to reach out and touch the faith. It is with our senses that we actually experience it all. So we experience the faith in all the ways. Thomas had right before him the King of Glory for a time. Jesus the Christ was before him. He heard him speak. He saw him. He touched him. He had words with him. He broke bread with him. And yet for Thomas, the all-important thing that kept him from full faith in the early days of his journey were that he doubted. He had not experienced it in his heart. He said Even when the reports were given of Christ's resurrection, he said, I shall not believe until I have placed my fingers into his wound and my hand into his side. And there before him was the risen Christ appeared. Christ came to him saying, Thomas, see, hear, place thy fingers into my wounds, place your hand into my side. At that moment, Thomas threw away his doubts, and he fell upon the floor, and he said, my Lord and my God. This is the journey of the faith for many of us in the modern world, because, as Christ said, blessed are thou that have seen and believed, but most blessed are those who have believed and yet not have seen. This is the journey of faith. This is what faith is about. The faith is about taking the step off of the cliff and relying upon God to catch you. You step off of the precipice of your disbelief and into belief. You sacrifice your will so that you can take upon yourself God's will. Now, he doesn't want, I'll tell you this, he does not want a partial sacrifice. He doesn't want you to give up most of your will so he can fill you with most of his. He wants to take away all of your will and fill it with his. Now, to some people, it's scary. What am I going to do? Am I going to become just a robot? Am I just going to become a person who has no sense of self? No. You see, what's mentioned in the church is the sacrifice of ourselves is often given back to us, but blessed. We're chosen not because of our strength, but because of our weaknesses. God is glorified in our weakness, because it is in our weakness that we have to rely totally upon him to give us what we need. And so here we are today in the temple. We are the Christians of the modern times. Our ancestors have gone on before us, and they watch even now. And so we have to understand that in Thomas's example, he did not sacrifice some of himself. He gave everything of his own. When he fell upon that floor, he sacrificed everything of his own self-will, and he gave it to God. And God made of him a proof of the most worthy servant, of the most excellent type, a master evangelist. His outreach was as such in Asia Minor that when later Christian missionaries came to India, hoping to Christianize the Hindus, they found in the presence there already churches that existed from days of old. Churches that were established by Thomas himself. His relics remain in India and in some other places as well, but mostly in India, where he met the martyr's death. The idea of the martyr is this. In your lives, you have to die to that which separates you from God in order to take upon yourself God's nature. This is the walk and the journey towards theosis. We are gradually burning away that which separates us from God. We are made in God's image, but we have defiled ourselves. We have taken upon ourselves the fallen nature by our birth into the physical world, and hence we have that fallenness, that mark of fallenness. Now, in our baptism, we are relieved of that ancestral sin. However, we still bear the effects of sin. We have a natural propensity towards it. The flesh is weak, but the spirit is willing. Has anyone ever heard that? This is true. The flesh is weak, but the spirit is willing. And the spirit guides us towards God. And we have to listen to the spirit much more than we listen to the flesh. And so we have to become martyrs to that which separates ourselves from God. Become martyrs to your self-will. As John the Baptist said to those who came to him, wondering if they should follow him or should they follow this Jesus who had come. And he said that you should follow the Christ. He said, I must decrease that he may increase. Good advice. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.